Hello everybody, welcome back for our final set review for Bloomburrow. We've got Yanks on the call, and today we're going to be going over all of the multicolor cards and giving them a rating between 1 through 10, based on how we think they'll perform in the average limited deck. If you guys missed our introduction to Bloomburrow, make sure you guys check that out first. We went over new mechanics, returning mechanics, and all of the draftable archetypes, which will help you evaluate the cards we're looking at here today. How you doing, Yanks?
Good. How about you?
Good. So are you excited to see the, essentially the most powerful cards for each of the archetypes we've been talking about for the last few days?
I am, and I'm interested to get a look at, we talked about this in the introduction video, about how there's almost like double the number of signposts in this set because of the rare typal signposts in addition to the normal uncommon ones.
Yeah, so the uncommon signpost, I'll just quickly mention it for those of you guys who won't go back and watch the introduction video. The uncommon talks about the mechanic that color pairing is going to support, and the rare signpost is going to talk a lot about the creature type that color pairing is supposed to support. And each color has 4 creatures that it has in its color, and then those overlap only one with each of the colors. So you'll get like Simic frogs, and you'll get Orzhov bats, and so on and so forth. So here you're going to see the most powerful cards in the set that tie all of those things together. All of your payoffs for your mechanics, all of your payoffs for your typal otter nonsense. But anyway, let's jump in with Alania. Sure. Divergent Storm, 5 mana for a 3/5 otter wizard. Whenever you cast a spell, if it's the first instant spell, or the first sorcery spell, or the first otter spell, other than this card, you may have target opponent draw a card. If you do, copy that spell and choose new targets for the copy. Is a spell... How good does your spell have to be for it to be worth more than your opponent getting a random card off the top?
It certainly depends. I mean, the most obvious example, if I'm casting a spell that says draw 2 cards, sure, you can have one. I'll take another 2.
I would say almost any reasonable removal spell, killing 2 good things, 2 decent things.
Agreed. And one thing to note on this card, it's because it's a little tricky in the wording, is that you can trigger this 3 times a turn. You can trigger this for the first instant spell you cast, the first sorcery spell, and the first non-Alania otter.
Yep. I like that it doesn't just say the first otter, because if that was the case, then she would not be able to trigger based on an otter the turn she came in, because that would already have been mitigated. So it's just a nice little bonus. It doesn't really matter too much, but I think this card's good. It's decently statted. I think it would be too good if it had a keyword, but it doesn't really need a keyword to be good. You don't need a lot to make it get value. You can save it up until after 5 when you can double spell and get some good value. I think this is good. It's good. It'll be better based on the quality of your spells.
I mean, it's in the spells archetype, right? That's what Blue-Red Otter are doing.
That's the other thing about rating multicolor cards here, is we are going to assume you're in these colors, right? The other ones, we were sort of toning back the ratings because an otter is not good in not is-it spells. So in the average deck, it's worse, if that makes sense. So that kept the ratings down, whereas I think we give these the full-blown rating, because if you're looking at this, you're in those colors.
We're assuming you can cast the card. I mean, how difficult it is to cast is still relevant. Something that's a 2-drop that costs 2 different colors, that's still relevant. But we are assuming you are able to play that spell.
But we're not assuming you're Boros bunnies with a blue splash. We are assuming you are is it wizard otters or whatever. So rating wise, let's just get straight to it. I think this card is fine. I think this can win games. It's probably an 8.
A little bit lower, but not much. I mean, it's 7.5. It's just you definitely you'll pretty much need to untap to get any value with this. Yeah, maybe you can hold it till you have a cheap spell and this and 7 mana, but
there is
that cheap spell might...
That cheap spell might what?
Oh, sorry, that cheap spell, because it's a cheap spell, might not be something that's worth the card to copy either.
That's fair, but I mean, the fact that you can do it multiple times, I feel like it'll have a good impact. So you said you were a little lower. What was the rating?
Yeah, 7.5. Pretty close.
Balin the Haymaker. We have a 3 mana 4/3, difficult to cast, Rabbit Warrior. Tap 2 untapped tokens you control, add 1 mana of any color. Tap 3 untapped tokens you control, draw a card. Tap 4 untapped tokens, put 3 +1/+1 counters onto Balin the Haymaker. It gains trample until end of turn. Yeah, that seems cool. You don't have to do any of those things at sorcery speed, so it's good activation. Hard to cast. In a set that we already looked at, the lands doesn't super support 3 colors, but green is really good at fixing. There are multiple creatures that make any color. There are multiple cards that let you dig out lands. I think this is doable.
It is. It's really not a card you can really play like in Boros. Right, in splashing green, you probably need to be Selesnya or Gruul as a base green to get those dorks.
Yep.
To fix.
And I think you want to be Selesnya because
Agreed.
That's where the bunny rabbit tokens are, and that's where this is going to be absolutely nuts. So if you're in the Selesnya deck, you can play this, tap a bunch of tokens, draw a bunch of cards, make a pretty big impact right out of the gate. So I'm going to say that this is... It can also win games. Like, it's the Lord. Oh, man. It's tough. I think it's an 8 in that deck.
I think I would say this is a 7. I like the last card better. This is truly difficult to cast, and it does need a reasonable amount of help to win the game. It
That's
can't
fair.
do it. Even if it's left alone, it can't do it by itself.
That's fair. And the idea is if you are trying to cast this on 3, you don't have the creatures to tap the same turn. I was kind of assuming that, like, you play this, you could get, value the turn it comes out in response to removal, which kind of bumps it up. But I think I'm still pretty happy to consider this an 8. But you were a 7?
Yes.
Next up.
Burrowguard Mentor. Green and a white for a creature rabbit soldier. It's a star with trample. Power and toughness equal to the number of creatures you control.
That's a lot of rabbits.
That's your uncommon signpost. What does green white want to do? Go wide with a lot of little rabbits.
Yep. Also, there are a fair number of like mice and things in this that will give you the white-red theme. So there's like mice in white that will give you valiant offspring. So that'll help a lot with this.
Sure.
It's a good signpost. I think this is, if you're in these colors, this is where you start to get excited that you're playing this particular card. To me, that's like a 6.5.
That's where I am as well.
Next up, Camellia the Seedmeister?
Seed Miser, I think.
Seed Miser. There's no T there. I was like, a Meister. Jesus. 3 mana for a 3/3 menace. Other squirrels you control have menace. Whenever you sack 1 or more foods, create a green squirrel creature token. And you can forage for 2. Put a +1/+1 counter on each squirrel you control. It's quite the lord.
And you can... I'm just making sure, right? You can order the triggers, so if you're foraging by sacrificing a food, you can make the squirrel first.
Yes.
So.
Well, Arena might not let you.
True.
Sometimes I have problems with that.
No, actually, I think it'll automatically do it because you're paying it as a cost, and then the other one will trigger on top of it. So yeah, so you buy
this one
two
automatically happens, yeah, because this will happen before the forge resolves, yeah.
Yep.
This does not feed itself in any way. You have to have other squirrels, you have to have food. It doesn't make those things. However, you're in Golgari, so we're assuming you have all of those things because that's what those colors do. It's easier to remove. The other ones had bigger butts. I think this is very good, but I think it is just a 7.5. It can win games, but they need to not have any lightning bolts, of which there are many.
I have this as a 7.5 as well. doesn't fully feed itself, but the fact that it, as long as you don't need both foods and squirrels, you just need like foods can then make squirrels,
Yep.
which is nice.
And just
So
having menace
that
squirrels is
helps.
fine too. Like, it's not bad. And it certainly can win when your deck starts to snowball. It's just so stinking easy to remove.
True.
That's the other thing too, is like, with multicolor cards, they're usually powerful enough to where they can win if your opponent can't remove them. It's just how impactful is that card if it's removed.
Agreed.
Next up, we have the Cindering Cutthroat, 3 mana for a 3/2 Lizard Assassin. When it enters with a +1/+1 counter on it, if an opponent has lost life this turn, you can pay 2. It gains Menace until end of turn, which helps enable more triggers of your opponents having lost life this turn.
Hybrid cards are always great, and they're the opposite of kind of the rest of the multicolor cards because they're easier to cast.
Yeah. Nothing special. I think this is a 5. I'm certainly playing it. The idea of getting an easy to cast 4/3 for 3 mana makes me pretty happy, and I don't think I need to be in Rakdos to think that I can get combat damage in.
Sure.
So
it is funny that the hybrid card that's easier to cast is still better in those colors if you have both colors.
absolutely.
You're right. We can definitely play it in either. 5 works.
Next up.
Clement the Worrywart. 1 green/blue for a 3/3 legendary frog druid with vigilance. Whenever this or another creature you control enters, return up to 1 target creature you control with lesser mana value to its owner's hand. Frogs you control have tap, add green or blue, spend it only to cast a creature.
This is a really good lord. It's doing the ramp thing that you want to ramp with. It's also an infinite trigger of bouncing, which is also what Simic wants to do. Now, is that good enough? I don't know. It's also easy to kill. I wish this was like a 3/5. I do think this is very good, but I feel like this archetype is going to be already kind of weak because you're going to be setting yourself back on mana so often. I would love for this thing to be a little thicker. He should have a booty.
I do too, but it is only a 3-drop. I mean, like our 3/5 we saw was a 5-drop.
I mean, I almost wish it was a 4-drop that has booty. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
I feel like my big payoff is gonna die, and then I'm effed in a archetype that's already weaker without the help.
The archetype is a concern. I definitely agree with that.
And so then if the archetype is weak and I need my payoff to live, and my payoff will not live if he has no butt. You're a toad, you're a frog, you're a big thick boy, give me a butt. I think this is like a 7. It's an enabler, it's gonna be good, but I don't think that this deck's gonna be very good.
Kind of agree with all of that. And to the point that I'm probably even a little lower at 6.5.
If he sits around and stays on the board and you have the deck, you're gonna win games, but that's a lot of ifs.
This whole archetype just feels like it enables you to do a whole lot of just dirtling and not accomplishing anything.
And you're gonna get hit in the face with a squirrel. Corpseberry Cultivator, 3 mana. Yeah, bouncing all your shit when half the crap creatures have menace. Jesus Christ. Corpseberry Cultivator, 3 mana for a 2/3. At the beginning of your combat on your turn, you may forage. When you forage, put a +1/+1 counter onto this. It's already an okay rate. I like that it's a constant ability to forage for another thing. So like if you have the Squirrel Lord, you can just forage for 2 to do the thing, but it also just lets you do it for this, right? And then you can just make the squirrels.
Oh yeah, I like that part better than the fact that you could just do it itself repeatedly, because I feel like I'd be hoping to have a lot better value for what I'm foraging than just getting a single +1/+1 counter on this. But the fact that it does it, if you can do it other ways, is nice.
Yeah, so what I was just saying that like it's giving you the ability to do it each turn. So there's going to be cards that say whenever you forage, do X, but they won't come with a built-in forage mechanic, like a built-in forage triggerer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I agree. I'm hoping that I'm foraging to something that gives me a better forage ability, and then getting these counters for free. But I think that they're going to stack on each other really, really well, and sometimes I might need to forage to make all of my activations happen and not have access to it. So this little guy is just giving me that outlet so I can ensure that I get it. Because sometimes the other cards might have a stronger ability when you forage, but don't come with the forage. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm just trying to remember if we saw a lot of that or not.
We're going to find out, but I like that it's included. That's all.
Sure. Yeah. This card's fine.
Also, why is the squirrel got a thicker butt? I mean, I get he's eating. But my squirrels shouldn't be thicker than my frogs.
It's the same until it finishes eating.
Squirrels should be 1/1s.
I do agree with that.
I want 12 squirrels in a trench coat. I think this card is fine. I think this is not making or breaking your squirrel deck, but it's a great enabler for it. I'm going to give this like a 6.
I think I'd be in that 5 range, like 5.5.
Close. I think five's a little low for me just because of how squirrely it is in the squirrely. But yeah, it's close. I think it's
Not turtley enough for the turtle club.
Nope. I don't think it's anything special, so I'll agree with that. Dream Do Entrancer. I want to say Enchanter. Oh man, I'm so high on the
They call me Tim.
They just announced it. If you guys didn't see it, they just announced a Monty Python and the Holy Grail Secret Lair, and I'm not a Secret Lair person. I don't really like them usually. The only ones I've ever bought are charity ones, so I'm gonna get this.
I have never been excited by a Secret Lair. I still will not buy this one, but this one's awesome.
Oh, that's actually a lie. I did buy the Princess Bride one for the Commander show, but
yeah, you had to for that.
Frog Wizard, 4 mana for a 3/4 with reach. He's got a butt. When whatever enters, tap up to 1 target creature and put 3 stun counters on it. If you do, if you control that creature, I get to draw 2 cards. Oh, that's interesting. So you can just like put stun counters on your squirrel idiot and then just draw
bounce
2?
it, and then bounce it
on your squirrel idiot. You don't want to bounce your squirrel idiot because it's a token. But
well,
on your frog idiot, sure.
Yeah, that's the first time we've really seen a significant, something like this where it's really great. Let's bounce that creature. I gotten the benefit and none of the drawback.
Or you could just 3 stun counters can win games.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was a set not too long ago where it was like just a 2 mana sorcery or something that put 3 stun counters, and I was like, this is not going to be good. And it just someone cast it and then cast another one, and then I lost the game, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess this is good.
I think it was Capenna, right?
Yeah, something like that. And then just having that on a 3/4 body to boot with reach, this is really good. I'm pretty happy with this card. I think this is a 7.5.
Agreed. That's where I like it as well.
And the draw is really flexible and fun, so I think that's going to be a neat trick. 2 mana for Phineas Ace Archer, a rabbit archer with vigilance and reach. He's a 2/2. When he attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control. That's a token or a rabbit. If the creatures you control have 10 total power, I also get to draw every time he attacks. I mean, there's going to be a lot of bunnies. There's a good chance that you play this on 2, you attack on 3, and you have 10 power of rabbits already anyway. That's an exaggeration, but it's not that much of an exaggeration.
It is. The tricky part of it here is being able to let this live through attacking.
So you play this on turn 2, right? And then you play the 3-drop that lets you make 3 1/1s. And then you attack with this and turn them all into 2/2s.
So that gets you to 8.
Does it say every other?
Yeah.
On other creature? That's unfortunate. But that's pretty freaking close, man.
It is.
And if you're on the play, you probably get 1 free attack. You get to then do it again, and then you have an army of 3/3s coming in. Oh. And you drew.
Yeah, if you can get that 1 free attack in, that also gets you, a couple counters at least. Doesn't have to be 3, but at least a couple.
1 or 2, yeah.
Yeah, then it's certainly worth it.
I think this is a good signpost. I don't think it's as strong. It dies pretty easily, but for a 2-drop, what can you expect? It has vigilance and reach. Put some combat tricks in your deck, and you're going to be right as rain. It takes a lot of work to make this good, but it can be good. 7.
Yeah, I think 7. Agreed.
Next up.
Fireglass Mentor. Black and a red for a Lizard Warlock, a 2/1. At the beginning of your second main phase, if an opponent lost life this turn, exile the top 2 cards of your library. Choose one of them until end of turn you may play it. So start a second main, basically, if you hit them in combat or did anything else to them, you get to impulse draw.
This is fantastic. This is better than most of the signpost rares that we're seeing, honestly. I love that this ability. I think Rakdos is cheating because Rakdos overlapping with the otters that ping you for spells is stupid. Like, you lizards have recruited the otters to work for you.
They've also recruited the bats that are draining.
But that you have to, like, gain life and stuff. At least the lizards have to work for it. The otters just untap, and they can ping you for 1, and you don't cast the instant or sorcery to untap them to break it, but it already did the thing. It already did it. Like, those otter cards don't need to cast instant sorceries to work, to do the lizard thing. So they've enslaved the otters to do their bidding, and it's just unfair. That none of the other typal creatures have that sort of collusion happening, and I don't think it's fair.
Everyone's going to lead a crusade to free the otters.
I am, because that's the archetype I want to play, and I will not stand for this evil lizard tyranny.
Can any of the otters ping? Because at least the ping creatures, because at least they can just kill this thing.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think there's cards that do damage to any creature, but I don't think it was the otter pingers. That'd be too busted.
Agreed.
Rating-wise, I think this is a great card. I'm just going to call it a 7. I'm very happy to have this in my deck.
7 sounds good.
All right, next up we have Gev, Scaled Scorch. 2 mana for a 2/3 ward, pay 2 life. He's a lizard mercenary. Whenever a creature you control enters with an additional counter on them for each opponent who lost life. Other creatures you control enter, yes. Whenever you cast a lizard, this deals 1 damage. So this is just going to fuel itself. You cast a lizard, it triggers. The lizard will then come into play with an extra counter. So it's an all-inclusive lizard tyrant.
This is, just off screen, it's got all the otters and chains.
I was going to say he's got an otter on his backpack, like in his backpack. That's what the ping is from. It's 2 mana. It's 2 mana, 2/3 with ward that does some shit. Great. This is like a 7.5.
That does some shit.
7.5.
Agreed.
Next up.
Glarb, Calamity's Augur. 3 mana, multicolors, black, green, blue for a 2/4 frog wizard noble with Death Touch. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play lands and cast spells with mana value 4 or greater from the top of your library. Tap to surveil 2.
Again, this is in green, and the frogs are Simic, and green has the fixing. So I think this will be an easy black splash for green. I like that these, so far, 3-color stuffs are premium in the color pairing in which it can support the splash. Does that make sense? Like, the frog is not the Dimir color.
True. Yep.
Right? The frog is the Simic, which is the green. So I think this is good. I'm willing to not be mad about the mana cost. I like that he's got a butt. We finally got a frog with a butt. Let's do it. Death Touch on a 2/4. Excellent. Surveil. Find cards that are costing more than 4. Great. And doing the frog thing, casting larger spells. He's doing everything I want him to do. A little slow, albeit, but he has a butt. So we're going to call that an 8.
An 8. I mean, it is a mythic, so it should be pretty good. I like it at 8.
Next up, we have Head of the Homestead. 5 mana for a 3/2 citizen rabbit. When it enters, create 2 white rabbit creature tokens. 5 mana for 5/4 worth of power across 3 bodies. That's going to enable all of your other Selesnya shit that cares about tokens specifically. It's going to make your Phineas make a lot of counters. It's going to make your XX bigger, your uncommon signpost. So I think this is solid. It's like a 5.
Yeah, this is kind of, I don't know, one of the more disappointing so far cards in multicolor, but it is certainly not unplayable. I think you're right around a 5.
I think it's what I want to be doing in Selesnya. It's a little bit better than the 4, which is like, ooh, I don't want to play this.
Yeah.
This is like, oh, okay.
It's compared to like the 2 and a white common that makes 3/1/1s. I'm just so much happier with that than paying 5 for this and making one of them a little bigger.
Yeah. Helga, this is one of the main characters from the storyline. We have another mythic 3-color, again in the frog colors, so perfect. Frog Druid, whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 4 or greater, you draw a card, you gain a life, and put a +1/+1 counter on Helga. You can tap or add X mana of any color where X is Helga's power. Spend that mana only to cast creature spells with mana value 4 or greater, or creature spells with X in their mana cost. It's exactly what these colors want to be doing.
The fact that these are like the last couple ones of these we've seen are 3-drops, and they care about mana value 4 or greater. That's kind of perfect, right? I mean, it's tough to play this on 3 with the color requirements, but if you can, untap and then your very next turn, you're hopefully, just by doing what you wanted to do anyway, playing a 4-drop, you're hitting this.
Yeah, it's a good card. Again, it dies kind of before it gets to do anything, but it does do a lot. So I feel like that averages out pretty well. I'm liking what I'm seeing on the frog top ends. I feel like these lords, as it were, are doing and putting in more work than I was seeing from the green and blue specific frogs. So I'm getting a little happier with the archetype. I'm going to say that this is a 7.5. I like this frog.
Sorry, what did you say? I missed it.
7.5.
7.5. Yeah, I think that's right. I don't know if this is making me much happy about the archetype, just because obviously everything we're seeing that's good is in mythic or rare.
Yeah, but the mythic or rares are pulling more weight, I think, than the bunnies. Mythic rares. Does that make sense?
Yes, although we haven't seen any mythics yet. The only mythics we've seen are are those 2 frogs.
All right. What was your rating?
7.5. I agree on the rating for that card itself.
Next up,
Hugs Grizzly Guardian. X red green for a 5/5 legendary Badger Warrior with trample. When it enters, exile the top X cards of your library until the end of your turn. Your next turn, you may play those cards, and you may play an additional land each turn. So at its base, it's a 4-mana 5/5 trample.
Which is nuts.
Admittedly, an awkwardly costed 4-mana red green.
Yeah, that happened to me. Whatever that evolve format was, like the last time we were in Ravnica or whatever, there was a similar creature.
The Sunder Shaman.
Yeah, and I remember getting bricked on that a bunch, which was annoying. But I think this is a good card. I think this is getting to cast that X for just 1 or 2 makes a lot of extra stuff happen. It's big on its own. 5 is one of the biggest things in the format, right? Like rabbits, squirrels, otters, lizards, not known for being huge. So This is going to run over most of the table.
Yeah, there were just those handful of uncommon 6/6s, and otherwise this is pretty darn large.
I want to know, why is he crushing the skull of...
He's hugging it.
But it looks like one of his dead babies. It looks like another badger. Maybe it's like a rat?
I mean, it kind of looks like it's got a beak.
It looks like it has the long snout with little sharpy teeth. Maybe it... Because the badger has that long snoot.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what it's...
Rating-wise, what are we giving it? I think it's because you can get those cards right away. What happens if this dies? Until the end of your next turn, you can still do those things. You can't necessarily play the lands, though, because this is dead. That's an ability you need. But you can still cast or play these things. So I like that you can actually affect the board even if it dies.
True. Yeah, you can, as long as you spend some extra mana on it, you can get that effect.
And that it matters to me. So I'm going to say
Agreed.
that this is an 8.
I have it as an 8 too.
The infamous Cruelclaw. 3 mana for a 3/3 with Menace, a Weasel Mercenary. Whenever Cruelclaw deals combat damage to a player, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You may cast that card by discarding a card rather than paying its mana cost. That's good. Just discard all your lands at the end of the game.
Sorry, I'm just trying to read the... Okay, so you can... That's the only way you can cast that card.
Yep.
Okay, that's what I was trying
and
to
it says
make sure.
you may, so you could just hit a card and then not like it and just keep going.
Just ignore it.
Or you could just keep rouletting into like, oh, 5/5, discard my 2/2. Oh, 3/3, discard my bounce spell that I'm not using or whatever. I mean, maybe not in these colors, but also you're just casting stuff for free. So like
exactly, yeah, you're getting a lot of value off this.
So even if you're discarding a card that's equal and then also playing a card that turn, you've changed the board state in a big way. So
definitely,
it's at that point it's a tempo play, not a card advantage play, and that's still solid. 3/3 for 3 with Menace. We're not mad at that. 7. I'm a little worried about milling myself out.
True, yeah, it doesn't say they go back into your bottom of your library. I'm not that concerned about that, but just you not only do you have to untap with this, you have to hit with it to get any value.
Yeah, it's got Menace.
So yeah, it's good. That's why that just is keeping me from wanting to make it like an 8. So I agree with 7.
Next up,
Junkblade Bruiser. 5 mana, 3 and 2 Gruul hybrid for a 4/5 Raccoon Berserker with Trample. Whenever you expend 4, it gets +2/+1 until end of turn. Pretty simple.
Yeah. It attacks like a house.
Yeah, we were just talking about how there's not a lot of big things, and this is going to attack as a 6/6 Trampler pretty often.
It's easy to cast. I'm going to call this a 5.5.
Agreed.
Next up, we have Castral the Wind-Crested. 5 mana for a 4/5 flyer. Whenever one or more birds you control deals combat damage to a player, choose one. You can draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on each bird you control. Shut up. You may put a bird creature card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield with a finality counter on it. Shut up. And this bird has a big, thick booty, so he's going to be very difficult to deal with. He's evasive. You can't block him. This is a very good card. 9?
I think so. There's always a kind of, we saw with the last card, a little bit my mind hesitation on.
No, it's just a 10. I'm willing to give this a 10 because it says whenever one or more birds you control deal combat damage, so you just play it pre-combat and play it in a time where you can guarantee you get a trigger. That's nuts.
Yeah, I mean they could still just Doomblade it in response.
But you're playing it in a time where you feel comfortable doing that, right? Like the thing is that you don't necessarily have to untap with it. You still have to set it up, but that's the case for every card. Yeah, I think this is nuts.
This card's great. I don't think I quite have it as a 10. He needs to be answered. He can win the game, but he can be killed for no value. So I have it probably a 9.
Yeah, the amount of times that I feel like I will just play around that and make sure that they're tapped out for the turn, make sure I've got good, clean attacks, whatever the case may be. I'm here for this card. I think this is probably the most powerful one that we've seen so far. There's like one other 10 we've seen, and this might be a little bit lower than that. Maybe it's like a 9.5, but I think this is game ending. Next up, we've got go ahead.
Lily Splash Mentor. 2 green/blue for a 4/4 frog druid with reach. Then you can pay 1 green and a blue to exile another target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Activate only as a sorcery, which is very sad text.
This is exactly what frogs want to be doing. They want to be ETBing a bunch. oftentimes they want to bounce, but most of the time a flicker will still do. Whenever the creature comes into play, it does the thing. So the frogs are kind of designed to focus on bouncing, but this is just better most of the time.
Definitely. There's definitely some other flicker support too. It's a little weird that the value you get from bringing the creature back is something that, like, if you do it again, you're not getting any repeated bonus off of that, but that's okay. You're hopefully flickering something with the ETB you're getting, so.
Yeah, it's just the ETB that you're looking for, and the nice thing is that this is also giving a benefit to all of your creatures that don't have an ETB. So that's,
Sure.
Kind of two-sided there. It's a fine card. I think this is like 6.
I've got a 6. Just nicely statted too.
All right, next up, we've got 2 mana enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, if you've gained life this turn, each opponent loses 1 life. At the beginning of your end step, if you've gained and lost life this turn, create a 1/1 black creature token with flying, a bat. You can pay 2. You can pay 2 life, draw a card. If you've gained and lost life. Okay.
So that's the first time we've seen that where it requires both.
There was a bat or something that had 2 triggers, I think in white, that had like, it would trigger on both, I think. But this can, you have to find the life gain outside of this card. It can fuel its own second half. And I like that this second half will also fuel all of your bats. Mm-hmm. So even if you can't gain a life in a turn, you might be able to just pay 2, draw a card, and then play your bat and activate its ability.
True. Yep. Sure.
Because there are lots of bats that will activate on if you've lost or gained life.
Sure.
So that's nice. It's a good enabler, but you need to have some really consistent life gains for this to be happy. And then even then, you still need to be dumping mana in to be really happy.
Yeah.
This requires a lot of help, but it could be solid. So I'm going to say 5.
I think so, because I think not only do you need to be an Orzhov, you could be an Orzhov deck now that gets a lot of value out of stuff where you're mostly just losing life. But you need to have the version that also has a decent amount of gain triggers to be particularly happy with this card.
Yeah. And it could just be that you're fine with having an enabler for all of your bats, right? Like maybe the pay to draw a card is just good enough with the other bat abilities, but it's going to be rare. I think the average bat deck is still probably cutting this, and then a good bat deck will be very happy to have this.
Interesting. Maybe I'm a little higher on it than you then, because I think the average bat deck will still play this just for like the Phyrexian Arena type effect. I mean, you do have to pay mana, but
I was actually waiting for you to like respond, and I was going to correct myself that it's not going to cut it, but it's not like good for it, if that makes sense. It's not like, yes, I need to draw this card. It's just like, oh, okay. Like this could just be a solid creature in that spot as well, and it would like not make a ton of difference.
Sure.
So I'm going to give it a 5.
I think I would probably say 5.5, just a little bit better.
Maybell, heir to the Cragflame, 3 mana, 3/3 mouse soldier. Other mice get +1/+1. When Maybell enters, create a token that is an equipment. It's a +1/+1, has vigilance and trample, and has haste. Equip 2. I think this equipment is incredibly powerful, and it's a 3/3 for 3 that has a mouse lord ability. This card is fantastic.
It is, and this is, example of card, right? No matter what, you're getting value out of this card because the equipment's staying behind, even if they kill it.
Yeah, so even if you're not heavy in the mice, this is really good. This is one of the main characters from the show, or from the story, which is neat. She is a mom warrior who's like, she used to be like a soldier, and then she like was being a mom, and then some shit went down, and now she's like about to go fight everybody, and she rallies the town with a sword. It's great. 8? I'm high on the artifact.
I am too. It does everything you want. Even once this, once this gets killed, you have value left behind, but it's value that's also doing what the archetype wants to do because you'll be able to trigger value with that equipment.
Yep. All right.
So 8.
Mind Drill Assailant, 4 mana for a 2/5 with Threshold, as long as you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard. This gets +3/+0, and you can Surveil for 3. It's a good enabler. Easy to cast, relevant creature type, nothing special.
It's slow, but this is an archetype that's based around Threshold is playing for the long game anyway.
Yep. I think this is a 5.
Agreed. I think this is I think if you have a lot of Threshold in your deck, I mean you should as a rat, but if you have a decent amount, then the Surveil ability gets even more interesting.
Moonrise Cleric, 3 mana for a 2/3 flyer. When it attacks, you gain a life. Let's go. This is what I like to see. Even in a not bad deck, I'm playing this. It's a good rate. The flying, the gain life. I mean, a couple of points can honestly make a difference. It's not worth spending a card on, but if it's just happening when you are hitting them in the face with an evasive flyer, I'm here for it. This is great. And it's enabling all of your bats. So 7.
A lot of times I don't love things that have, this must attack to do something because it just dies, but 2/3 flyer is not the easiest thing to kill, especially early in the game, at least in combat. So
it's easy to cast.
The attack part doesn't bother me much. 7.
It's probably a 6 in a not bat deck. Like if you're in, something else.
Sure.
Selesnya or whatever. But like in the bats, it's going to be very good. So 7. Next up.
Muera? Not sure on this one. Muera Trash Tactician, sorry. 3 mana, 1 red and a green for a 2/4 legendary raccoon warrior. Beginning of your first main phase, add red or green for each raccoon you control. Whenever you expend 4, you gain 3 life. Whenever you expend 8, exile the top 2 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards.
What is the expend 4 here doing? Like, I feel like they just decided it wasn't good enough, so they're like, what can we add to this to, like, make it do more but not change its, like, actual value? Like, I'm the Orzhov player. Stay out of my goddamn lane. What are we doing here?
I almost wanted to say it had something to do with, like, well, food is green and that's gained 3 life, but it's not like anything cares in those colors about gaining life. It's just about, like, when you forage, so that doesn't help either.
Exactly. So go stick to your own lane, idiot.
It's almost like so many things were expend 4 that they thought people would be confused if it didn't have 4 before going to 8.
Yeah, I just wish it had done something green, like, I don't know, give a creature +1/+1 till end of turn or something. And maybe that's too busted, I don't know, but
it does seem out of place.
Let's give it, I mean, that expend 8 ability is really good. The ramp is really good. It's checking all of the boxes, including the boxes in my lane. So, like, how do you hold that against it? It's a 3 mana 2/4, which is fine. It's gonna ramp you into your 5s really nicely. You can get any of your lands that you want, like whatever you need is good. 7.
I like the fact that while expend 8 sounds like a lot, it also fuels itself. Like the first time you trigger this, you now have extra spells to try to get to it again the next turn. So it snowballs like that pretty nicely. And are likely maybe some of those spells you're casting are raccoons, which means you get more mana. It just keeps snowballing. 7 seems good.
I would give it a little bit actually of a higher score, I think, if it was a more expensive creature that was bigger. But, like, I feel like I'm still going to play this more often than on turn 3 for the, like, other 2 abilities. And I don't think I'm going to get here as often as I would like.
You're going to get to game 3 a couple times.
Yeah. So if it was a later game play where I felt like this was happening more often, then I think I would be a bit higher on it even still. Sure. Now, you could just cast this on turn 8, play it, and then play a 5-drop, and then you get the ability, which is neat.
Yep.
But, yeah, I think I'm sticking to a 7.
Yep.
Next up, we have the Bloomburrowr Mentor, 3 mana for a 2/3 flyer. Whenever it or another creature you control flying enters, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature without flying. This is great. I'm so high on the birds. Seriously, I think this deck is going to be incredible.
That's interesting. I'm still so down on the birds.
I think
Not as much
so
as I
good.
was, because that rare was pretty ridiculous, but
I think it's going to be very good. I liked all of the pieces that we saw, even in white and blue individually, seemed good. The multicolor cards seem good. They seem better. I've just been impressed every step of the way. It's just such a good signpost. I'm going to give it... a 7, but I feel higher on it.
I'm going to say 6.5.
I'm like close to 7.5. Seems so good. Pond Prophet, 2 mana for a 1/1. When it enters, you can draw a card. Great. That's an excellent target for all of the bouncing shenanigans that frogs want to be doing. And it's not bad on its own anyway. It's a little overcosted for like a 1/1, but you're drawing a card, so that's good. It's like cycling, but you get a 1/1.
We saw that in Kamigawa, right? The dog was like 1 and a white for a 1/1 when it died. When it died, I think, draw a card.
And it was an enchantment that like triggered all of your other stuff, which this is certainly going to do. I think this card is great. I think this is like an easy 6.
Agreed. This, it needs support, right? On its own, it's just kind of whatever.
Fine.
But that's what this archetype wants to do.
Yep. Next up, we have... Go ahead.
Ral, Crackling Wit. 4 mana, 2 blue-red for a legendary planeswalker Ral that enters with 4 loyalty. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a loyalty counter on it. +1, create a 1/1 blue and red otter creature token with prowess. -3, draw 3, discard 2. -10, draw 3, you get an emblem with instant and sorcery spells you cast have Storm.
And it's funny, but it's not super relevant for limited.
They found a way to put Storm into a standard set.
But it is cute. So I'm 2 stories into the storyline, and Ral is looking for Jace, and so he uses the Planeswalker abilities to follow him to whatever his next plane is, and Ral teleports or whatever into the plane, and he's like, what is that fur? What is wrong with me? And he's like, oh my god, I have a tail! And it's just super funny, because the idea that like he didn't know he was going into this plane and turned into an animal and got freaked out is great. It's very funny. He's like, where the fuck am I? He's like, why am I an otter?
That's a fair reaction.
It was a very funny scene in the story, and I really liked it. Sorry. Rating wise, guys, make an otter with prowess right out of the gate for 4. I think this card is good. I'm gonna say...
At absolute minimum, you get your card back right away.
I'm gonna say it's a 9.
Discard 2. So, I like it as a 9 as well. It protects itself. It's going to get more loyalty from casting spells, because that's what your Izzet deck's trying to do anyway. Which can then, you can draw 3 cards and discard to something that's not non-creature spells and continue to do it. So I think it's a very strong card. It's a 9.
All right. Next up, we've got a 3 mana 3/2 with Vigilance and Haste. And it has Valiant. Whenever this becomes the target of a spell or ability for the first time, put a +1/+1 counter on it. It's a reasonable signpost, uncommon. Nothing flashy, but I think it's a 7.
I have it as a. I think I'm gonna have it as a 6, just because I like it less than the bird, and I gave that a 6.5. So.
Yeah, honestly, the bird is better. The bird is better. It's just the Vigilance and Haste for Boros Mice seems like a pretty solid creature to begin with. That's like my 6. And this Valiant thing, I think, is going to get out of control. If you don't have the support for the Valiant, this definitely will fall off a lot, but here we are. 6.5. Seed Pod Squire, 4 mana for a 3/3 bird scout. When it attacks, target creature you control without flying gets +1/+1 till end of turn. That's a fine ability. It's a little understated these days.
Yeah.
But it does come with that additional stat point on the attack each time, which is cool. Plus it's triggering all your bird stuffs. So this is a 5.
5.
All right, next up.
Starseer Mentor. 3 white and a black, 5 mana for a 3/5 Bat Warlock with flying and vigilance. At the beginning of your end step, if you gained or lost life this turn, target opponent loses 3 life, unless they sacrifice a non-land permanent or discard a card.
Let's go, bats. Woo! I love it. He's got a big, thick booty. He hits people. He blocks well. He makes your opponents have bad decisions that they have to make, which I love.
It doesn't trigger itself, right? It does need help.
Yeah,
but it's the help that this
yeah.
archetype's based around.
I'm kind of just always assuming that you're in these colors, and like I am pretty impressed with how all of the cards. There's no chaff in Limited anymore. Like it's not hard to find the deck that does the thing. So, 7.
Yeah, sorry, just reading the flavor text and it made me laugh. The end part of it, the naming stars. It's like this one is called Orax the Night Eater. That one is called Blinky.
That is kind of funny.
7.
All right. Next up, we have Stormcatch Mentor. 2 mana for a 1/1 with haste and prowess. Instant and sorcery spells cost 1 less to cast. That's a good balancing, right? Normally it's the same cost for a 2/2 that does the ability but doesn't have prowess and haste. So that's fine. I like it. It's
It's like the most build-aroundy of these.
Yeah, agreed. It doesn't just naturally become a 3/3 and call it a day. So it's definitely harder to get your value. But I think it's good value.
It is, and not that it's bad. The haste kind of seems a little out of place on this card, but I guess it does have prowess, so it can hit hard if you play it late game and back it up with some things.
6.5.
I have it as a 6.
Tempest Angler, 3 mana for a 2/2. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter onto it. Oh, my heart. I love you. You're so good. This is I'm excited to play these in my Otter deck. I take this and I'm like, yes, like this is a hit I'm looking for. Like pick 3 through 5 and 6. I'm pretty happy if we're loading up my 3-drop slot with this. It's a full-time counter. It's really good. It does die kind of easy, so you got to get like 2 counters for it to then be above rate. So I'm gonna say 6.5.
Yeah, I mean this is just Spellgorger weird, right?
Mm-hmm. And I loved that card.
Yeah, and now I guess this is. Is it easier to cast? Even that was 2 in a red. It did require a red. This you could pay with either. Basically, it's 3 colorless in those decks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I like this as like a 6.
Tidecaller Mentor, 3 mana for a 3/3 with Menace and Threshold. When it enters, which is important, if you have 7 or more, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So it makes me a little sad that like the signpost uncommon is punishing you for not already being in the late game, where all the other signpost cards at uncommon benefit you for playing them early and get better and snowball as they go. This has to be played late. It's still a good rated creature on its own, but once you've cast it, you've done the thing. Blue might bounce it, maybe you recur it, but that does make me a little sad. It's still very powerful.
Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't bother me. I actually kind of just am fine with the flexibility of it being a 3 mana 3/3 menace, which is just fine on turn 3, or much better if you play it on, hopefully in Dimir with Surveil and some self mill. Maybe you're getting that on turn 5, or you're getting Threshold pretty quickly.
Yeah. $6.5. The bird is the best.
I think I have the same.
All right. Veteran Guard Mouse, 4 mana for a 4 with Valiant. When you target it for the first time, it gets +1/+0 and gains a first strike until end of turn and scry. Honestly, a 4 attack power first striker is going to be a pain in the ass to deal with. Everything is so small in this set.
It's true.
And getting to scry every time is not nothing. I think this is a solid mouse top end. Because remember, this is the mouse deck. This is curve out 1, 2, 3, 4 and be kind of out of gas. And this is what you want to end with. And you're pretty happy. And then you start moving around your enchantments or your artifacts, spending mana to like combat trick. I think this is exactly where you want to be. It's nothing special, but it's good. It's an easy 5.
Yeah, I've got it as a 5 as well.
Vine Reap Mentor, 2 mana for a 2/3, above rate. When it enters or dies, create a food token. Huh.
This is fine, but pretty underwhelming compared to the rest of the signposts.
Yeah, I wish it did a little bit more. Like, I wish if it cost 1 more or even 2 more, and then like when a squirrel died, made a food. Like I feel like all of the other signposts have a build. Well, maybe not the Dimir one. But the longer you have them in play, the better and better they get. They help you get more counters. They help you do a thing. They help you enable all of your other cards to be impactful. This one doesn't really do that. You get 2 forages, maybe. You get above rate creature. It's fine. It's like a 6.
Yeah, it's fine. It's just not that interesting.
It's a good creature for your archetype that will enable all your cards. It's just sad for a signpost. Next up, we have one of our Dimir rares. 4 mana for a 3/4 rat rogue with ward 2. If a creature an opponent control would die, exile it instead. Pretty relevant in this set. At the beginning of each end step, create X 1/1 black rat creature tokens with this creature gets +1/+1 for each other rat you control, where X is the number of creatures your opponents controlled that were exiled this turn. So, removal spell, kill your creature, it gets exiled. I make 1 rat token that gets +1/+1 for each other rat I control.
So I make a rat that's a 2/2 basically.
And then minimum. I make a rat they're all 3/3s.
Yep.
They just get
so it's
bigger.
Like kill something, make a pack rat token. Obviously, without the discard ability.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
He's hard to kill. He's got a nice butt. It makes combat for your opponents really shitty. Like, they can't trade with you ever. Because you just get infinite value.
It randomly hoses like Golgari and Dimir mirrors by screwing with their graveyard.
7.5.
Yep.
It might be an 8. Honestly, this might my 8 is like if left to do its thing, it wins the game. This is probably that, honestly.
Yeah, and it's hard enough to kill that's probably fair.
Wandertail Mentor, 2 mana for a 2/2 with expend 4. It gets a +1/+1 counter on it when you do so. It also taps for any color mana. Great. 6. I love mana dorks.
Especially ones that are not useless late game.
I'm always happy to have
6.
Honestly, yeah, it might be even higher. Honestly, it's like I'm gonna give it a 7. It's a mana dork that turns into a 6/6. What more could you want? That's good, clean living.
That's fair. Igra?
Yeah. I was like in Yagra. Eater of All, 5 mana for a 6/6 ward. Sacrifice a food. Some decks just can't do that, which is great. Mm-hmm. Other creatures are food artifacts in addition to the other creature types. Oh, all other creatures.
Yeah, so they can do that.
All right. Well, that's a little less exciting. Whenever a food is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put 2 counters on this. Okay. It's still going to be a 6/6 for 5 that forces them to, like, sack a creature. That's still real good.
Yes, assuming they don't just happen to randomly have a regular food around, this is a 2-for-1 minimum.
Yeah. And then it gets bigger, and you can sacrifice your own food and your own squirrels or whatever to make this huge and hit them in the face. It doesn't have trample. So, I don't know. It's probably like an 8.
I like it as an 8.
So it's a little, like, not so flashy. It's just kind of an idiot. But I think giving your other food Giving your squirrels food, turning them into food means that you can.
It enables all your forages.
Yeah, that's what I was going with. This is part of a combo too. There's every time it's not unlimited. I don't think it was in the commander deck. I added this to my commander deck, and it was one of the creatures said, anytime you sack a food, make a squirrel.
Which then became a food.
And then there was like another card that let you just like sack squirrels to like a Chatterfang lets you sack squirrels to give -1/-1.
Okay.
So you just like would go -1/-1 and infinite across the board and kill everything, nice. Which is kind of cool. But anyway, it's like an 8.
Yeah, I like it as an 8.
Zorline Cosmos Caller, 3 mana for a 3/3 bat cleric, flying and vigilant. Whenever a bat you control attacks, gain a life. It triggers itself. That's nice. Whenever it enters or attacks, you may pay 2 and 2 life. When you do, return target non-land permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. Yes?
Yes, if you wait till you have 5 to do this, you're guaranteed to get some value. Assuming you have something in your yard, I guess.
Yeah. It's a great enabler for all of the bat stuff. It's doing exactly what we want it to do. So what do we call that? It dies so easy, but I want to say it's...
I like it as like a 7.5.
Ooh, I'm higher. I was thinking 8.5.
Maybe an 8. Maybe an 8.
Like, I was like, it's probably an 8, but I want to give it an 8.5. So, like, we're like half a point in the opposite directions.
Yeah, it probably is an 8, because it does... It's not like whenever one or more bats, so if you attack with multiples, you get multiple triggers. And the fact that you can just wait till 5, yeah.
And it's so good for the rest of it, for the rest of the ability. And like I said, my idea of an 8 is like, if left alone, they might answer it, but does it win you the game if they don't have it? And the answer is, I think, yes.
Right. I think you're right.
This is just so strong in doing, because like the gain life is going to make all those other bats good. Anyway, that's the end of our set review for Bloomburrow. We did it. We did all the cards. Make sure if you guys enjoyed the show, make sure you guys use the links down below in the description. Click our sponsors. We've got cool stuff. You get 5% off all of your singles, sealed product, dice, everything you need. We also have Mtgnerdgirl, where you guys can get sleeves and deck boxes. It's just an informational site, and if you click it, it lets them know I sent you. And then finally, Anthros, which is the lovely chair that I have, and you get $200 off, and Elgato, you get 5% off any of your spell table needs. Cameras, mics, green screens, all those good things that you see me using here on the show. That helps support the stream so I can continue to make more and more YouTube content. Yanks, what do you think of Bloomburrow?
Good. I'm interested to see how this plays out. The combination of mechanical themes plus typal themes is interesting.
All right. I am very excited for birds and very excited for bats. You guys will be seeing me play this. Actually, I will be drafting Bloomburrow today. So if you are seeing this, there's already a draft video live for you. So thank you guys so much for watching. Go check out that draft, and we'll see you next time. Bye.